whatever is arising for us is not something that we need to make wrong or bad. What's arising for us is part of the rising.
Before we dive into this week's episode, let's talk about a brand we both genuinely love, Cytoplan. You've probably heard us mention them before, and that's because their supplements are next level.
Yes, Cytoplan has been part of my routine for a while now. They just get it when it comes to health. Their whole approach is rooted in science and totally in tune with nature.
Exactly. Their formulas are bioeffective, which basically means the nutrients are in forms your body actually recognizes and uses properly and at the appropriate levels. Cytoplan is used and trusted by health practitioners across the country. Their formulas are developed by nutritional therapists and backed by over 3 decades of clinical insight. You really can feel the quality when you take them.
Plus, it's not just about what's in the bottle, it's the mission behind it too. Cytoplan is 100% owned by a charitable foundation, which means everything they do is about helping people live well for longer. It's not about trends or quick fixes, it's about real, lasting health.
That is so wonderful to know. And whether it's our energy, perimenopause, menopause itself, sleep, immunity, or just staying on top of your health, they've got you covered. You can also get a free health questionnaire and a consultation by ringing the helpline.
So if you're ready to take ownership of your health, check out Cytoplan, powered by nature, proven by science, and rooted in purpose. We'll pop the link and an exclusive 15% discount code in the show notes. Hello, I'm Caramellas.
Hello there, I'm Dr. Rosy Daniel.
You've just tuned in to Alive and Loving It, and we're here to help you bring joy and energy back to your life. This week our guest is Joey Walters. She is a transpersonal leadership coach, facilitator and founder of Rising Connected, which is a learning community devoted to helping women lead with depth, authenticity and embodied feminine wisdom. Drawing on over 25 years of experience in transformational learning and trauma healing, her work integrates transpersonal, somatic, systemic and ceremonial approaches to personal and collective evolution. So many of you have requested Joey as a guest, so we called her out of her period of wintering and she answered our call. It's a wonderfully rich episode. You are going to love it. Hello there. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. I can't believe the weeks are going by so quickly. Content is not our problem, and this week is very special and dear to me because on our episode 23 we're talking about community. Episode 22, 23, 24 is all about community, and the very special guest that we've got for you today is how I found community and how I understood what community really means. And it was about 5 years ago when I met this very special lady, probably even more. I feel like I've known her forever. It is so great for me to be sat. You might be able to tell I'm a little bit nervous, actually. I am sat in conversation with 2, not one, like every week, but 2 of my beautiful teachers. And I am so grateful for these women. It makes me feel really tender. And now to know that we're going to be able to share some of their wisdom with you, get comfortable, get a cuppa and snuggle in for this one. So let me just welcome Rosy first. Rosy, hello you. How are you this week?
Oh, just wonderful and so happy to have Joey with us.
And Joey, thank you so much for being with us. And do you know, we've had many requests from our audience for you to be a guest. So you're finally here. and you're going to share with us a little bit of your life's work and what Rising Connected is all about. So even though I've heard this story, please tell us, where did Rising Connected come from?
Thank you so much. Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me on. It is a delight to be here and a real honor as well. And just totally celebrating you two for bringing this podcast alive and loving it at the same time. So it's a great honor to be here. So Rising Connected, well, as with anything that any of us do, I believe, this is, the gifts and contributions that we bring forward come from our own experience, really. So although the name Rising Connected was a bit of a download when I was preparing for a TEDx talk, I should say, that I was holding at Findhorn in 2017. It's when the name came through. I was already building a community called Awakening Feminine Leaders, but actually really the inspiration for this whole community and for the work came through my own experience as a leader, and in quite a long journey of supporting women on their path of inner and outer leadership, shall we say. Feminine leadership is more what I call it these days. And I think probably the most important part to share around this is one of my biggest sort of wake up calls, I suppose you would call it, is in, I call it my past life when I was in a different career. And we're talking 30 years ago now. I will keep it brief so you don't hear the whole 30-year story, but that was a really pivotal moment in my life. And as I know, probably many listeners can relate to this as well, where we get to the end of our tether. I came to a place in my past career where I was a leader in my organization. I'd co-founded a business. It was a successful business in London, and I completely burnt myself out and was operating in a way that, meant I lost myself completely. And so although it was a painful time, I also had a very strong calling to step away from that. And I stepped away from my entire career. I didn't know at the time that it would mean that, but it did mean that. So that was in a way, it wasn't the beginning of my journey, but it was certainly a pivotal moment in stepping into this kind of new path of, first of all, healing myself and following my own calling to wherever was going to nourish me next. And also in recognizing at the time that women needed something different, and particularly women in business and in organizations, we needed something different. And what the support that I perhaps could have accessed at the time wasn't available. So that became the first inspiration. And even then I had the vision of circles and bringing circles to women in organizations. And that was kind of like the first part of the work that happened. But at the same time, just to give you a little bit more of the flavor of it, of course, I went and did a whole tranche of different trainings, which kind of re-skilled me in holding space, fundamentally coaching, and all sorts of different modalities. One of the most important and first parts of that part of the journey was when I found these earth wisdom teachers in North America. And it was very, it was a synchronous finding, but I discovered these teachers, and I had a kind of 10-year journey with these teachers who, just created the most profound space. They were not full-blood Native American teachers, but they had had these teachings handed down to them. They'd been apprenticed, they had apprenticed. And that was a time where I found a recalibration of my nervous system. And it's really only reflecting on this that I've recognized, wow, that time kind of woke something up in me, because it reawakened, perhaps even is more correct to say, it reawakened the sense of connection with myself and my soul self. It reawakened a sense of my connection with the earth and with nature, because everything that we did, we would have these long ceremonies, and all of them were on the land. We would be sitting in circle around the fire or in a teepee or under the stars, endlessly in ceremony together. It was a really profound time. And so I think that was something was anchored in me at that time that then was actually very hard to bring back into the sort of normal Western world and the way that we operate here. I say here, but more in the sense of more in our kind of like the daily life of our Western society, and the culture, the speed of our culture and everything. It was difficult to integrate, but I'd say the last 25 to 30 years have been that integration for me. And it's been a profound kind of ground for me to then start to bring this work forward in different ways, and largely through work. So.
Wow, Joey, that's just so many beautiful things you've said. But, being able to share that earth wisdom and to recalibrate your nervous system and just come home to your own soul and to reawaken your soul energy. I'm sure that people listening are thinking, yes, please, that's what I want. And I know that you've brought that through into the format that you offer in Rising Connected. Can you explain the process of what you now offer and the kind of healing that you witness in your groups and circles?
Thank you, Rosie. Yeah, I think maybe it's important to recognize that in terms of the purpose of Rising Connected, it's a space in which other women who feel called to bring their gifts and contributions forward can find a place of healing and sanctuary themselves, and can be nourished in their own journey of leadership. And so the kind of women that seem to be coming into the work are like you and I, the women of our, who are called like us to be in some way bringing a contribution to our very out of balance world and society that we live in right now. And so, in a sense, what I see happening is that we're waking up to what is wanting to come through us. We're waking up to our own authentic expression, our own sense of purpose. And so the space is, in a way, you could say that it's not so much about process, but about the experience of coming into a space that is a sacred space that is for that purpose. That when people come into that space, when they come into a circle, it could even be in the one-on-one work as well, but it's like when people come into that kind of container, there's an experience of being able to settle more into, I can be who I am. I can be seen and met as I am. There's no mask that I need to wear in this space. And let's face it, we all know about the masks that we need to wear in this world in order to belong. I think that's probably been part of your conversations already in this series, but the demasking and the welcoming of bringing ourselves as we are, even in our brokenness. Because I think for me, there's many, many times where I and other women who I'm working with have felt that brokenness and have been in that place and wanted to run a mile because there's so much shame around that. And bringing that, or those places, let's say, when, because I don't believe we are broken, any of us, but when we feel broken or when we feel completely disconnected from ourselves, to come into a space where actually that is welcomed is really deeply healing. That's like the first ground of that container, is like it's all sacred. None of it is wrong. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just that actually we've all been living in this incredibly disconnected way, in this incredibly disconnected society, and we're feeling both the calling to heal from that and rise in our wholeness, but also the pain of that separation from who we are.
I really feel that as you're talking, yeah, because I think we do mask, we do boldly go, we do keep going against all odds, but the sacred space to connect with our soul and our heartbreak and our grief and the things we're feeling about the state of the world and the chaos that's ensuing. And I know the optimists amongst us feel that this is the breakdown to break through to this more feminine, heart-centered, conscious, loving, caring connection with each other and the world. But boy, is there a lot of grief around it at this time. And it's so incredible that you can actually just summon up that, even talking to us right at this moment, Joey, that sense of freedom to feel what we're actually feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard you speak about this many times, Joey, but I've just been able to join the dots. Hearing you talk about nearing burnout, and which is a familiar story on the podcast. It's a familiar story for me, Rosy, and many of the women that we know. But just hearing you talk about in that moment of holding yourself and actually not seeing that as a bad thing, but what am I? Well, you welcomed it in. That's what I noticed when you were just speaking then, is you welcomed in the burnout and what is it trying to teach me? And so now I understand, I've got goosebumps. The structure of the circle that you've created comes from that place where you've held it for yourself. And now there is a structure in the circle which will welcome it in for everybody else. I mean, the trauma that we go through informs us, doesn't it? And I really could see that in your story there, Joey. That's it feels like another dot has just been joined. And of course it's like, let's not judge it. Let's just witness it. Let's see what information is coming from this. Very human experience. Thank you for that.
Well, you know this journey well yourself from your journey with the circle work, Karen, and Rosy, you know it from your own experience too. We all know this experience because we know that this is what grows and strengthens us. But I think that the important principle here is to recognize that, whatever is arising for us is not something that we need to make wrong or bad. What's arising for us is part of the rising. It's like it's all rising. It's like we're going to clear, it's like I see it in many ways as the feminine consciousness of the earth, the feminine consciousness of life force that's wanting to move through us, and as it moves through us, as it awakens in us, it needs to clear out what has been contracting it down and squashing it down, and it's that suppression of the feminine in many ways that we're healing. So if we can see it that way, then we can much more easily welcome it. That doesn't make it easy to feel, though. And I think that's one of the many benefits of it's a benefit of one-on-one work too, and in coaching and therapeutic contexts where this energy is held well. But it's also profoundly important in the circle work, because when you have a number of nervous systems supporting the healing of another nervous system that's struggling to open to these energies, to these difficult vibrations. We call them, maybe difficult vibrations, but we're talking about not just grief, Rosy, but fear or terror and rage, not just anger, but rage. All of these emotions are coming through right now. They're all part of what we need to welcome and feel and integrate. And it's then that, it's through that our nervous system can recalibrate and learn to regulate again. And it's through others that co-regulate us, which is a large part of what happens in the circle work, is we get this kind of like amplified co-regulation that supports us in really allowing those energies to come through.
So Joey, I just want to ask, because my experience of a different kind of circle work was mainly during my 15 years at the Bristol Cancer Help Centre. And every week we had a new group of residents, about 12 people, that magic number. And these would be people who would be perhaps newly diagnosed or re-diagnosed with cancer. They would arrive on the Sunday night as complete strangers, and we would journey through a week together, usually hitting an nadir on around Wednesday that we called Wobbly Wednesday. But, by the end of the week, by the Friday, these people were closer than you possibly can imagine. They were like each other's best friends. And, but the magic of the group and the circle and that well of consciousness, where people were met, and these were not trained therapists, of course, the group leaders creating the safety and the space. But what is it about a circle that can facilitate such extraordinary healing?
That's a beautiful question, Rosie. It's such a beautiful question. I could speak to hours about this, and it's very interesting. You said they weren't trained people, so I think first of all we need to recognise that there's more than each of us at play, even if we are experienced at holding space. There's more at play here than just ourselves. There's a divine force, there's a sacred field that if we can, I think even sometimes just coming into the space of a circle, it's more difficult to do on Zoom, but we do that intentionally. Even just coming into a circular space provides a container. And there's a, if you like, in a way, an archetypal energetic that is activated through that. And I think the archetype of circle is wholeness. And so there's something about that, and always the intentionality, because not all circles are healing circles, right? Things can go wrong. Things, if people are not conscious enough in the holding of the space, things can get awkward and difficult and a bit messy. So that's true to say. But it sounds to me like what you're describing is an experience where there was enough welcoming of vulnerability and openness to the emotional field that people were really, truly in. And when that level is held and welcomed, people can land more fully in what's authentically true for them in the moment. And when they do that, and that's welcomed, then they're seen and they're met in a way that other environments don't see them and meet them. And so that's what keeps the mask up. And so I think it's beautiful that you describe this in the context of people that have been suffering from cancer, from physical crises, health crises, which I know in my own life. That's one of the most profoundly difficult things to meet. And something that if we can soften through that with a group of people that are held with intention for healing, then all levels of healing can get activated, not just on the physical level. It might be more, in the context of your doctor role, right? It's all levels of healing get activated.
Well, it was opening a gateway in those people for transformation, because once we journeyed through the grief and the shock and the anger that people were feeling, people were starting to open to the new possibility and giving each other the courage to dare to consider being, the authentic me or the new me and I see this, and you both kindly invited me to a retreat at Broughton Hall up in Yorkshire. And Karen, I know this is work that has become the center of your focus now, carrying on doing the circle work. What sort of healing do you see, Karen, in your circle work?
Well, I was just, as I was listening to you both, what was coming to me was the amount of trust that is needed and how difficult it is to trust in our world at the moment. And it needs an amount of trust within yourself first to listen to what is really happening for you rather than what you think should be happening. And initially, when people come into circle or one-to-one work, I hear that word should a lot. And that's an indicator to me that somebody's operating from a place of distorted power, which is a term I've learned from Joey. We'll talk about the agreements in a little bit, but they're operating from a place of distorted power and not the truth of what is happening for them. So the trust level has to build over time. I remember, Joey, when I first came into the training, I was like, can't we get through this in 3 weeks, please? Coming from that fast-paced world of, can't we just, 3 weeks, learn it, move on? No, because it takes time for that trust to grow or safety to grow. And I think one of the things that struck me very early on in the circle training was that the most healing thing is when somebody finds that courage to operate from their truth, the most healing thing is just not to have any advice given, not to for anybody to try and tell you what to do to fix it, but just to be quiet and place a hand on your heart. Yeah, it's tender me thinking about those times that I've been witnessed in circle. And just to be able to operate from that place of truth, and people still love you and you still belong. That's the magic. The healing is like, it releases shame, it releases fear that I'm all right, I'm enough. That's what I learned in Joey's trainings, and that's what I hope to bring into my circles. It's a gift that was given to me, and we need to just keep gifting it to more people.
Beautiful, Karen, to hear you speak about that. It's and the slowing down is really important. You know, we live in such a fast-paced world. It's interesting because I think part of the desire to just get things done is that we think that that on the other side we'll feel better. So we want to kind of get through things and get to the other side. And this is what is really the kind of like crux of one of the distortions of our fast-paced world, is we're just all riding over the surface of all of these feelings that we don't want to feel and trying to get to the other side. We are learning to slow right down. I am still learning to slow right down. I believe we're all still learning to slow right down, because it's in the slowing down that we can actually truly get to not just meet what might be coming up for healing, but meet the deeper layers of our authenticity that are actually coming much more deeply from a soul level, that want to be more fully expressed in the world and in our lives. And I think that's the yearning. That's the yearning that we all have, is to be more fully expressed in our lives and in our, not just in our work, but in our whole life, you know, in all our relationships, and in, you know, we want to be more fully ourselves and to be able to be met there, but without that being met there being something that I've got to be seen. I can be me, I can meet myself, and here I am, and others can meet me there.
As you were talking, got an image of, you know, the female population of the world dancing this fast dance, you know, and trying to keep up with the pace of like a sort of crazy dance, like a crazy jig, you know, when actually what we want to is to slow dance and to feel. And just how crazy is that? When did that happen, where we all became so entranced with the power of more and more and more, and, you know, trying to keep up and being pushed by parents and by schools? And I'm just thinking of my daughter Eloise when she was little, and she was about 5 years old, and she'd just gone to school, and she was getting a bit stressed about the SATs exams. And I said, darling, you know, this is about the school just seeing how good it is. And she said, do you mean the school is using me to work out how good it is? And I said, yes. She said, well, I'm not playing. And, you know, that idea that, you know, the government are making the achievements of school into political fodder instead of giving, you know, children the space to feel and grow. And how did the process of education of beautiful young souls and spirits, you know, when did that become like the highest stress occupation on the planet, you know, with this more driver operating everywhere?
Yeah, thank you, Rosie. I think that's an incredibly important question, and one that's a very important one to explore and to recognize. And perhaps the most important thing for us at this moment is to realize that it's everywhere in our society, and that it's been happening for many generations. And so we're trying to unwind that in this work. And I think all of us in the work that we're doing are trying to unwind that, finding ways to unwind that. But there's many ways that we could look into that, the answer to that question.
I really remember one of the biggest things I remember from the retreat that I came on was you saying, you know, we're rising as feminine leaders, but we need each other. so that actually how exposed feminine leaders get if they're not rooted in the sisterhood, the ancestry, the spiritual connections, the earth, that so that was just an absolute key learning for me. But Joey, we've just touched into the question of the agreements, the 8 agreements that is part of the foundation of what you're teaching. And I know that would be a whole podcast in its own right, but perhaps you could share with us, in essence, what this is about.
Thank you, Rosy. So I suppose, again, sort of my journey with the circle work that was very much inspired by the Earth Wisdom experience, that the experience I had with my Earth Wisdom teachers. It sort of evolved over many years of my own experience of being in groups and in circles, and my own journey, and of then beginning to hold these groups and circles for other women, first in corporate life, and then kind of opening more to really focusing on visionary women, change leaders, coaches, healers. It's the recognition that, every time we come together, there's a sense, it's almost like the first thing that people say if they haven't had this kind of experience before is like, thank God I'm not alone. Thank God I'm not alone. And so you named that, Rosy, but it feels really important to underline it. And it is related also to these agreements, because what we also don't know is how to be together. It's like we haven't learned very well how to be together and how to be. And I think for women as well, I think there's a lot of competition amongst women. There's another whole podcast really on, the sister wound and what it is for women to come together again. But the purpose of us coming together is the way I'm really kind of naming it now is to really heal the inner patriarchy in each of us. And doing that together is deeply powerful. And what sort of happened over many years of being in groups and circles and learning more and more about the process that I was experiencing and what makes it safe, what makes it sacred, what enables us to come together and really drop into deep authenticity and a space where we can actually experience a level of healing that we perhaps haven't done elsewhere. It has a kind of form to it. It has kind of principles to it. And some of those principles, Rosy, in the circle you were speaking about in your cancer circles, you would have been working with those principles without them being conscious, right? But it is also something that came out of the Earth Wisdom, because these agreements that have formed are also anchored in a way in the 8 directions that I was taught and that largely I sort of learned to embody myself. And so they weren't called agreements. It was Earth Wisdom teachings, and I'm not bringing Earth Wisdom teachings through these agreements. It is a different form in a way, but they're rooted. It's like they've got roots in these 8 directions. So there are 8 agreements, and in the center is the heart. And each of these agreements is bringing us back into the heart, bringing us back to hopefully more and more of a capacity to open our hearts and lead from an open heart. And so each of these agreements has a sort of captured in a way an energy or a principle and a kind of, we call like a core power, but they also have a representation of a distorted power, as Karen mentioned earlier. And so just to give you an example, because it would be too much to go through them all, but to give you an example, the first agreement is authenticity. We've been speaking a lot about that in this conversation, because it is primary. It's primary. We're here to learn to really drop more fully into who we really are, and to allow ourselves to live and lead more fully from that recognition in ourselves. And so learning to speak from that authentic place in us with whatever it brings, and being held in a way that truly welcomes that, and that recognizes that being authentic and becoming more authentically aligned with ourselves is a journey. It's a journey that we learn. It's not a thing that instantly happens. It's an unraveling of the masks, and And so Circle helps us to do that by really providing a space in which we consciously name, we're here to really bring ourselves as fully and authentically as we can. You don't have to be any particular way, but just come as you are and speak as closely as you can to your heart and from your heart. And that's what Karen was saying earlier, that was so beautifully about, learning to trust that I can do that in the space. If I can learn to do that in Circle, then I can learn to do that more fully in my life. So the agreements become, then they're not rules or ways in which we have to be with one another. It's a kind of like an energetic container, and they're living principles from which we are constantly learning. So when we speak about the agreements, we always speak about the agreements as something we're learning. And we say, for example, I am learning to be and express who I really am. That's the learning statement in the first agreement. So that's just given you a little bit of a dive into the first agreement. And there are 7 others which hold the circle and hold the space of safety and sacredness in the circle.
And I know that you talk a lot about the journeying with ourselves, to facilitate the creating of the space and the truth and the purpose in ourselves allows us as leaders to facilitate that in others. And so, I know that you just sent out a beautiful email about wintering. Tell us about that process of journeying with yourself, Joey.
Yeah. Thank you, Rosy. It's been huge. It's always been an important premise of the work that we do our own work first. If we're holding space for anybody else, we gotta do our own work and continue to do our own work. And we will get triggered, we will get activated, and we will have to go deeper and deeper and deeper in our own work. And that's been my experience for the last 30 years that I've been on this path. And so I have never stopped doing my own work. But there are also times, I believe, when we have an immense kind of overhaul. I don't know what to call it, where there's a big kind of awakening moment. And I think for me, that's been happening over this last year. I've been much quieter in the work. There's been a gestation happening. And I've, as you said, recently put an email out just sharing that I've spent all year in an inner winter, and here we are going into the next inner wintering. But that inner wintering space is so important for us to come back into a space where we're taking in the richness of what we've learned and how we've been out in the world around us, the outer path, and we bring it back in. And then we come back home into ourselves, and we go down and in again. But that process is not one that just happens on a cyclical basis around the cycles of nature in our year. It's something that happens all the time. It therefore becomes a way of being for us as leaders and it's like the circle, it's like a circle that, the infinity symbol on its side. So we go out into life, we learn, we maybe get activated by something, it shakes us up, we come back in and we work with that. And these agreements support us to do that as well when we work with them in a very deeper kind of, path of what I call feminine awakening, because we're going in and we're meeting what's happening in me as a result of what's happened out there. And that then gives us deep insight into what we're healing within ourselves. That we might be very tempted to blame it on the external thing that's activated us, but actually, and there may be something we need to absolutely address in that. But first and foremost, and this is one of the principles we work with, we come back to ourselves first. First attention is within ourselves.
Yes, and I know that Pam Gregory and other astrologers and healers and mystics are talking so much about this being the moment of the pause, and people feeling a bit lost and a bit like frustrated, that things aren't quite clicking, and that call inwards, that call to stillness and to be with ourselves. But I'm absolutely sure everybody listening is thinking, how can I access this level of your teaching? How can they access your groups, Karen? So Karen, in terms of what you're doing now and what you're offering, would you just like to tell our listeners how they can access this circle support?
Can I just comment first, Rosy, on the last conversation? Because, and just to demonstrate it, what I am learning most of all as I am remembering how to show up in the world and remembering then how to be with others from that place is that I am having to drop the myth of perfection. This absolute, you see it all over social media. You've got your shit together all the time. That if you're a leader of something, you're the one that has all the answers and you're good all the time. It's just rubbish, isn't it? I mean, let's just say that. It is so inauthentic and has no integrity if somebody is leading from that place. And I really have had to learn some hard lessons on that, because in reconnecting and in working from this truthful place, it's messy. And we are it feels like we're infants in it, that there's a long way to go before humanity remembers how to do it. Well, maybe there will always be pain, there will always be edges, because what you were saying, Joey, is that's the point of it. We come together, we get triggered, there's an edge, we can learn, we can grow. So being in the pause right now feels like an expansion place. We stop, and it's part of Joey's training is the power of the pause, that we don't react to a situation. That's one of the agreements, responsibility. We don't react, we pause and we breathe and we center ourselves. And so that we have a power of choice to choose how we then next respond. I mean, the agreements, that's just one little example of how the agreements, when you know and understand them, I'm scratching the surface at the moment, still very much learning, but it helps you to hold this transformation that is going on for humanity. So these agreements are not there to fix the current structure we're in. They're life-enhancing agreements for us to operate differently, because humans do create the structure. So in changing ourselves, eventually through evolution, we are going to change this new structure that's coming through. So thank you. I just wanted to respond to that. It felt really, really clear in me there as an example of one of the agreements. And she's taught me well. So if it's landing with anybody and you're like, oh, this is a new way to live, the new way to operate, then you really need to connect with Rising Connected and look at what's coming through Joey. She'll explain that to you, but to get to know the agreements more. In what I'm offering in my work at the moment is a group of 8 women come together, and using the circle structure that I've been trained in and using the agreements, holding them within myself, these women just come in, connect, center, and share, and be witnessed and still belong, whatever they say. Everything is welcome. And that's it in simple terms. And it is so, so healing. And my first circle has been going, we're just into the second 3 months. The second one is just about to start, and I'll be pulling a third one together in January. And for me, the chance to practice speaking from your truth is what my circles create, what the retreats create. Just a chance to practice, to take it out there.
And your contact details are on our aliveandlovingit.org website. So Joey, coming to you in terms of if people want to train with you, I know we respect your period of wintering, but I know you're working on a book, and I believe that you will at some point emerge and offer more training. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to backtrack a tiny bit, if that's okay, Rosy. I'll come to it momentarily, but I just want to honour you, Karen, because you said, this is simply what I'm doing. And I just want to really acknowledge that it is not as simple as that because of the work you've done. the safety is in your nervous system, and the space that you're creating so naturally is the space that enables that to happen. And I really want to honor you for that, because that comes with the work. That comes with the depth of work that you've done. And you're a demonstration of what we're all continuing to do, which is our own inner work. So deep bow to you for your work that enables that experience to happen in Circle. Yeah, Rosy, thank you for the question. And yeah, it's interesting because I'm in another revolution, and I know that there's a deeper layer birthing through me that's happening, and it's coming through the book, which has been very, very challenging to kind of keep going with. I keep having to rest and stop and go deep again in my own work. I'm currently in another level of my own training, which is taking me very deep, but it's me walking my talk, basically. But there are a number of Circle leaders like Karen who have trained in the work. We completed a training last year, which was wonderful, and it feels really fantastic to have other women who are now holding this work with me, and that I'm continuing to support in their work of holding space. So first of all, I am working one-on-one with people, of course. I am going to be providing something soon that is going to be not so much a circle, but an offering, a simple offering that is maybe a little bit more of a taste of the work for the journey of coming into that inner wintering. So that's one piece I just wanted to name. That's kind of very much on my in my focus at the moment. And then there's next year there will be certain circle leaders who are going to be taking women through a journey through the agreements, and from there will be the opportunity, because really the first place of learning how to hold space working in this model with the circle work is to be in a circle and to journey in a circle over a period of time, and to really have that nervous system recalibration that you're talking about, Karen, and what you're inviting people to.
Wonderful. Joey, I've heard at least 2 other episodes that we could have, one about the agreements and another one about the sister wound. I could hear lots of ears pricking up on that one. But I think we do need to draw our threads together now. I know we could be here for the rest of the day, but I am so moved to hear you speaking your beautiful truth yet again, and just deeply honor you for what you are bringing, and this enormously profound permission for us all as women to feel and live from our hearts. So just my endless gratitude to you, dear heart, and I'm sure you feel the same, Karen.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to leave the final words with Joey, because I can't. I've missed you. We've not been in circle together for a while, and deeply honouring your wintering, but also thinking, when is the next programme that's coming out? See the messiness of it. You see the messiness of it. And this is what I love when we get together, and we all three of us are, growing our ability to be our authentic selves, is that we allow the messiness, and still come, we have to demonstrate it every single day. Otherwise there's no integrity, Joey, is there?
No, exactly. And my left brain is not in charge of the when of things either. But I will say, please connect with me through, I think I might be providing a link anyway for this, for people to express their interest. I am going to be providing something that will be a little taste, a free taster as well. So if you go to my website as well, risingconnected.com, you'll find a button there that's a join the community button. So you can stay in touch, and I'll be keeping you informed of what's coming next. Definitely in 2026, there's offerings coming through. So please do stay in touch. And there will be more women's fires as well, which is more free gatherings online as well. So I won't say too much more about that. But I think probably my final words are, gosh, trust the journey. I speak to myself as well, that we need to continue to trust the journey, to trust the unraveling, to trust the breakdowns that are happening outside and inside, and to really reach out for support, to gather together, to not to fix one another, but to be together in in this kind of unraveling, in the healing, and in fundamentally what is a profound awakening that's happening on our planet right now. And we're all part of that. We're all called to that, and we're all needed for that. So, yeah, blessings to you both for everything that you're doing to support this massive transition. And thank you so much for having me and for giving me the opportunity to share some of my journey.
Bless your beautiful, beautiful heart, Joey. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Alive and Loving It. We really hope that today's conversation has sparked your passion and showed you ways to open up into the vibrant life that's possible for you.
Absolutely, Rosy. I mean, we do have to remember that transformation begins with love, and that is self-love. Love for others and love for our beautiful planet. When you embrace love and you just allow yourself to receive as much as you give, you unlock the fullest potential of your life.
That is the truth, Karen. And we're here to support you every step of the way on your journey. So if you enjoyed what you heard today, please join our community and check out our trainings and our services such as my Dr. Rosy Daniel Clinic and Karen's beautiful women's circles and retreats and the events where we can all go deeper together. And do please send us your feedback. We want to hear your ideas for the podcast, who you'd like us to interview, and the questions you want us to ask and get answered. Through the contact page on our website, just go to aliveandlovingit.org.
I've really enjoyed reading them. But when you're there, be sure to sign up for our newsletter and updates. And what about following us on Instagram as well? We are at Alive and Loving It Community. Once you've signed up to the newsletter, you'll receive extra notes from today's show and more inspiration to help you live your most vibrant life.
Thank you for being with us. Keep shining, stay true to yourself, and remember, this is your time to live your fullest, healthiest life.
So until next time, keep doing what you love most in life. I know Rosy and I will be. We're so excited to connect with you on the next episode of Alive and Loving It. And we welcome you with open hearts to our Alive and Loving It community.